Hello, everybody. It's 17th of May 2022, and we do have our friend Roberto Watanabe once again. Keep going on the talk he will give us throughout the year about the Medium's book. And today he will talk about physical manifestations.
Yeah.
So it's, I think it's chapter two.
Uh, it's, it's many chapters, some chapters.
Yeah. He's not following the jobs. He's doing like by topics. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Good, good. So happy to have you all here, Leah. Hello, Leah. I hope Sweden is okay. Summer is upon us. Hay fever is upon me. So it's good.
Fever. Wow.
Hay fever.
Hey, fever.
It's kind of an allergy. It's too much
Allergy.
pollen in the air,
Mm-hmm.
so the eyes is itching, the throat is itching as well, nose is
Oh,
blocked.
no.
So every year I need to deal with something.
Yeah.
Everything every year is different.
Hope you get better.
Yes. But I prefer stay with this than in a rainy day, in a cold day, in the winter, everything dark. So I don't care. I, so we need to do our initial prayer. Let me do the initial prayer. Meanwhile, we have more people joining us.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, if you can, to close your eyes, raise up your thoughts towards Jesus, and asking Him to send over us His blessings, filling us up with His love, with His mercy. Sending these good vibrations to our brothers and sisters who are going through difficult moments in any kind of terms, financially, spiritually, health. May these good vibrations reach them and sow the seeds of hope in their hearts. So be it. Amen. Okay. My dear friend Roberto, break a leg. I'll be here backstage. If you need me, just call me.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Are you going to put?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Hello,
Very
everybody. Glad to be here today. And today we are going to talk about a new topic from the Medium's book. We're going to talk about physical manifestations. So, um, Kardec started the chapter one of the second part of the book by explaining about the actions of the spirits upon matter. So, how spirits can act upon matter because they they do not have material bodies. So how can they have any action upon matter? So that's what Kardec is going to explain here, and we are going to see that the medium participation is essential in this case. And he starts by saying that a spirit, while incarnate in a body, comprises the soul. So basically, well, the same is in the Spiritus book. And what Kardec is saying here is that we as spirits, when we are incarnate, we say that we as spirit, we have a soul. And when the person is discarnate, then we call him a spirit. So it's the same thing, right? So just a change. There is just a change of words. And then Kardec says that when the soul, let's say, because he's incarnate here, right? When the soul leaves the body behind at the death, it is not deprived of its entire envelope. So here we must remember that man, an incarnate man or woman, is composed of a soul, body, and a kind of a intermediate body, which is the perispirit. So when we are incarnate, we have the three parts. These three parts. When we die, then we left behind the body, as Kardec saying here, but stay with the perispirit, with the fluidic envelope we have, right? So that's why he's saying here that the soul is never separated from its perispirit. And here we're going to see that the medium has his perispirit, and the spirit, this discarnate spirit, also has its perispirit. And it is by the interaction of these two perispirits, let's say, from the incarnate and from the discarnate, that the action will happen upon matter. And we have a third element here, which is the universal fluid, which is what Kardec is saying here. The spirit needs matter in order to act upon matter. So the instrument for the spirit to act upon matter is the perispirit. And the perispirit is comprised of a fluidic matter. So it's not a tangible matter, right? But it is a matter, although it is fluidic, which is composed the perispirit, the fluidic body of the spirit. And then the spirit needs also of intermediary agent, Kardec says here, that is the universal fluid. The universal fluid is, we can see in the Genesis, book of Genesis. Genesis is written by Kardec, right? We can see that the universal fluid is what Kardec calls there the cosmic primitive matter. So from this universal fluid, we have the fluids that compose the perispirit, and we have matter itself, the tangible matter. So that the universal fluid is in the origin of either the fluids or matter, right? The tangible matter, I mean. And the spirit needs this universal fluid as an intermediary agent, Kardec saying here, right? Which is a kind of a vehicle upon which it acts, he says. So, what are the physical manifestations? Are those that result in effects that are perceptible to the senses. For example, if I see a table moving, for example, with no one moving the table, that would be a kind of a physical manifestation. And what Kardec explains that the simplest effect is the circular movement imparted to a table, and which is the name is turning tables. That was a kind of entertainment at the various saloons in the 19th century, even the 18th century. And in this situation, a group of people sit around the table and do the following. They sit around the table and place their hands flat upon the table, right? Without pressure, just putting the hands there. And then they concentrate, they obey absolute silence and wait, right? Just wait. And then suddenly the table begin to move. And then if the table begin to move, then Kardec says the participants can move away their hands from the table, that the table will move it by itself, right? So this is this famous turning table. Famous, I mean, there in the 19th century, right? And here's a picture from, I believe it's from the beginning of the 20th century, with a situation that I just described, right? We have these four people here, two men and two women, and they they are kind of levitating this table, right? By just putting their hands flat on the table. So this curious entertainment for the 19th century was the starting of the Spiritism doctrine, because Kardec decided to, well, he was invited to see one of these phenomena, and then he realized that behind that all that movement, there 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 were some intelligences which were acting. So then he realized that there were spirits behind this phenomena, and then we have the book, the Medium's book, as a, let's say, an overall explanation of such manifestations. And that's why I'm pointing here that the turning tables is the starting point for the Spiritist doctrine. But then how the Spiritists can produce it, such physical manifestations? So how the spirit move a solid object, Kardec asks, right? And then he actually is not him, right? A spirit, an elevated spirit, explained to him, actually is the spirit of Saint Louis, the French king, right, from the 20th century. And Saint Louis explains that the spirit, it combines a portion of the universal fluid, which is the fluid from the environment, let's put it this way, with the fluid from the medium, right, from the perispirit of the medium. And so the spirit combined these two portions of fluids from the medium and from the environment, which is the universal fluid. And such universal fluid is the elementary principle of all things, like I said, right? So it's the elementary principle of matter, tangible matter, and also is the elementary fluid of the fluids in general, right? And it's just animated matter. It's not a source of intelligence, Kardec pointed here, right? So when the table moves, is because the spirit has taken enough of this combined fluid from the medium and from the environment. And then such a combined fluid, he involves the table with such a combined fluid and give the table an artificial life, Kardec says. And so in that case, the spirit can start to move such table, and based on this artificial life. How he does that, right? He does that by the influence of his own fluid. So here we have the fluid of the spirit itself, right? So by directing his own fluid and moving this, he can move the table, which is already involved by the combined fluid from the medium and from the environment. So that's why Kardec says that the perispirit is for the spirit. The perispirit of the spirit, right, is for the spirit what the body is for us, right? So as I can take a pencil, for example, with my hands. The spirit can move some objects through his perispirit. So that's Kardec saying here. It's something that we can understand in general, but of course we don't know, and we still don't know even today. This is the book was written 160 years ago, right? But 161 now. And we still don't know the mechanics, right? So the spirit just give us a general explanation, but we don't we can do that, right? If we can we can we can say that by understanding this, we know how it works. We don't, right? We cannot replicate, for example, repeat it, such a physical manifestation. Um, so Kardec explained that of all the spiritual manifestations, the most frequent are noises and raps, right? So noises that we hear from a closed room, for example, that is closed, and then we hear some noises, some raps, and uh, what Kardec says that we before believing that is a physical manifestation from a spirit, we must check if it's not just a natural cause, right? For example, uh, the wind, for example, a noise is caused by the wind, for example, on the window, for example, or on the door, right? So if is that the case, it's not a physical manifestation because spirit noises, Kardec says, have peculiar characteristics, and the noises has some variation, right? Different of tones, and sometimes we can, for example, ask the spirit to knock it to knock the table now, and then we hear the the the, the sound, right, of the raps. We can say, for example, to the spirit, well, I'm going to make you a question. If you agree, just knock once on the table. If you do not agree, knock twice, for example. And then we do that, and then we have the answer. So in that case, we can acknowledge that there is an intelligence behind those reps, right? So that's what Kardec is explaining here, and all this is done by the same mechanics that we just saw, right? So, and why the physical manifestations happens, and it used to happen a lot on Kardec's time, because at that time the spirit wanted to call our attention to this phenomena, right? To a new reality, which is the reality of the spiritual world that we didn't have such a knowledge until then, right? Or not just a very fundamental knowledge. So, and that's why he says that the main purpose on Kardec's time was to demonstrate the existence of the spirits or incorporeal beings, as he's saying here, right? But in some case, the spirit wants to establish communication with us, right? In some situation, they want to give us a device, useful device, for example, right? I mentioned here, I think a couple of lives ago, a situation that Kardec himself, right? He was writing a text at night, and then he heard some knocks on the windows. On the window, he went to see that there was no wind, for example, so that could not be a physical, a natural effect of that noise. But on the next day, he asked he evoked the spirit and asked why the reason of the noise, and then the spirit told him that he was writing something that was not correct. So, and then the spirit pointed, go to the, let's say, the third line of the page 12, and then you see what you wrote, uh, what you wrote that was not correct, right? And then he did that, and he realized that it was not correct, and then he could correct the mistake, right? But in other times, the spirit can they want to get in contact with us through these physical manifestations to make a request. For example, the spirit may want to prayer, for example, right? A discarnate spirit, I mean, right? So in this case, he can produce some raps just to call our attention, and then, like Kardec did, right? If we evoke the spirit through a medium, and in this case, a speaking medium, like we saw last month, and then through the speaking medium, speaking medium, the spirit can tell us what he wants, right? He want a prayer, or he want us to advise someone of something that he should not do, for or some kind of things like this. And in some cases, these manifestations, which most of them are spontaneous, can be caused by frivolous spirits, right? So the spirit that is just trying to joke on us, right, and causing us, making us disturbed by such noises, such raps, right? And in sometimes there are spirits that are acting in this way by vengeance, right? So they most probably are our, let's say, enemies from past lives. So this is the situation when we can have these spontaneous physical manifestations. And how the spirit producer raps, Kardec asked, right? Then the spirit of Saint Louis answers. Their hammer, right? Their hammers to produce a noise on the table, for example, on the surface of the table, is the combined fluid, right? Combined fluid of the medium and combined with the fluid of the environment. So they take this combined fluid and put into action using their will to produce the reps. So using their will, then we see in action here their own fluid, right? From the spirit. And then they can act upon air in the same way that it acts upon a table. So either the spirit can, for example, let's say, concentrate this combined fluid and project it on the surface of the table, causing the noise, or they can act directly in the air, because it's the air that brings us the sound, right? So if they act directly in the air, we they produce the noise as if it was the same as if they knock when we knock a table, for example, right? So that's what the spirit is explaining here. There is another kind of physical manifestation, which is the phenomenon of apportation. Apportation means we are in let's say, in a room, and then suddenly in that room it appears, let's say that we are sitting around the table, and then over the table it appears some objects like flowers, fruit, candy, jewelry, some kind of small objects, right? So this is a kind of apportation. So the spirit brings such objects from somewhere to that room, right? So that's what happens here. So that's why Kardec says that this phenomenon consists of the spontaneous bringing of objects that were not before in the meeting place, and of course is exceedingly rare, such kind of a phenomenon, and is one that most lends itself to being imitated, Kardec says, because we can, of course, just carry on a small object in our pocket, for example, and then without no one seeing, we put the object there on the table, right? So in this case, it's not a physical manifestation, it's just a limitation, right? And in such kind of phenomenon which is more difficult to produce. Kardec says that not all mediums can produce it, and not all spirit can induce it, such a kind of a phenomenon, right? And the spirit here, St. Louis explained that there must be an affinity between the perispirit of the medium and the perispirit of the spirit. So, because only then the spirit agent or the spirit discarnate, uh, by means, Kardec says, of certain properties of our environment, and here we see again the fluid of the environment, the spirit can render invisible uh, the object and move the object, right? So it's something like this. The spirit goes somewhere, takes, for example, a candy, and he takes the combined fluid of the medium and of the environment, and also through his own fluid, he involved the object and render the object invisible. And then he's bringing this object into the room. And uh, uh, as the object is in the room, then he takes out, right, he removes that combined fluid, and then the object appear on the table in the example that I gave. So that's what Kardec explained here, right? So it's a kind of a moving the object, turning it invisible, bring it into the place, and then removing the combined fluid, right? So Kardec says that the spirit can render the objects invisible, but not penetrable. What he's saying here is that such a room, in my example, right? Such a room where the small object appears, it's not a closed room, right? So we are there, but or either the door is open or windows is open, so that that invisible object can be put inside the room. But if the room is totally closed, there is no window, no door open, in that case, the spirit cannot bring the object inside the room, right? So that's what Kardec is saying here, because to do that, the spirit must disaggregate the object. So, and he cannot do that, right? He cannot undo the aggregation of a matter, what Kardec is saying here, because that would be the destruction of the object. But there is a situation when, even if we are in a totally closed room, an object is always small, right? Can appear there inside that room. And in that case, what Kardec explained, that is not an object that is involved, rendered invisible, and bring it into the room. In this case, the spirit brings the elements of matter. So he brings the element of matter, and such elements are essentially penetrable. Like for example, we know from the Spiritism that a discarnate spirit, for example, a wall is not an obstacle to him, right? But a discarnate spirit can pass through a wall, close the doors, close the windows. Tangible matter is not an obstacle to them. So in this case, the spirit goes, let's say, goes outside somewhere, brings these elements, and he can, with his perispirit, he can go through the wall, right, to enter into the room. And the elements of a matter also is penetrable, so it can bring these elements into the room. And then once he is in the room, then he composed the object. So that's what Kardec is saying here, right? So in this case, it can introduce an object in a closed room, no matter how closed it may be. That's what he explained here. We are going to see some this on maybe I think if 2 lives from now, we're going to see when we discuss a topic which is the laboratory of the invisible world. Then there we will see how the spirit can compose objects, right? So we have all this explanation, but a lot is, like I said, right? We can understand how it happens, but of course we cannot repeat such kind of a phenomenon, right? Because we don't know how to manipulate, right? The fluid of the medium, the fluid of the environment, and our fluid, our own fluid, right? So this is something that we still don't know in detail. Another kind of a phenomena, physical phenomena, is the what is called pneumatophony, right? Uh, Pneuma is from air, right? From something got something linked to the idea of soul, of air, of breathe, right? And phony is like with from phonetics, right? When we talk, for example, this is something related to the phony. And Kardec said that if the spirit can produce noises and raps, which is just noises, right? They also can produce cries, can produce vocal sounds. They can produce words which are speaking, right? So these kind of cries and vocal sounds can be right at outside or in the air, right? Because it's that situation that I mentioned. They can they can in they can act direct in the air and produce the sound. And so um, in this case, Kardec says that we must avoid taking for occult voices all sounds with an unknown cause behind them, because sometimes you can hear someone saying something, for example, and it may be something that is brought by wind, right? Someone is far from where we are, and then we hear some phrases, for example, and that can be a person who is talking far from where we are, and that sound is brought by wind, right? So we all, we always have to check if the phenomena is not caused by a natural cause, right? And so that's what Kardec says. Only intelligent effects can attest to the manifestation of the spirits. And such spirit sounds manifest in two ways, Kardec says. Sometimes as an inner voice, at other times as words that are outside of us. What he wants to mean here is that in some case we hear the voice like the sound was inside our brain, right? So that is an inner voice. And at other times, we hear the voice like someone which, for example, was in front of us, right? And then we see the voice coming from that direction. And such kind of phenomenon is always spontaneous, he says, right? So it's some interesting phenomena that we can see here, comprising this physical manifestation. Of course, such kind of a phenomenon is not something that is frequent today. Right? Today, such kind of phenomena are very rare. As I mentioned it before, at Kardec's time in the 19th century, or even in the beginning of the 20th century, uh, physical phenomena manifestations were very frequent because of the main objective of the spiritists or of the spiritual world was to call our attention to this new reality, which is the spiritual dimension, right? And today, that is not. We don't need that anymore, right? Because today we have the spiritist doctrine all consolidated, and then we can just read, understand, and we don't need such that kind of a phenomenon, because the main thing in spiritism is not the phenomena, right? Either physical phenomena that we are seeing today, or intelligent phenomena that we are going to see next month. The main thing in spiritism is the philosophical principles, right? And the moral principles that we can absorb from spiritism. That is essential in spiritism. So for that purpose, we don't need any kind of a phenomenon to happen, right? And to convince us. Just by studying, by reading the books, the Spiritist book, the Gospels according to Spiritism, the Medium's book, we can understand, right? Rationally, we can understand all these main fundamentals of the Spiritist doctrine. So that's what I have to bring today. And so today we have seeing the physical manifestations and its explanation. And like I said, a general explanation, right? Because by understanding the explanation doesn't mean that we can replicate, right, or repeat such phenomena. Because they are done by spirits, not by incarnate people. That's another factor, right? And then in the next presentation, next month, we will be talking about intelligent and visual manifestation. So we have an overview of these two main kind of a manifestation, physical and intelligent, right? Visual is a kind of intelligent also. So that's what I have to bring today, and I'm open now for comments, questions, or anything that you may want to raise.
Very good. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Very good. Always simple. Makes you are making simple, difficult things.
Very difficult, yeah, very complex.
Yeah.
Trying to.
Yeah. Let's see if we do have any questions here. Yeah. No, just Lou VM saying very interesting.
Mm.
Bet Mel say hi to you.
Yeah, that Mel is my colleague here from FASP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Okay, I hope it was clear.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It looks like it's very straightforward, but it
Mm.
is. It's complex, but at the moment you start to analyze, to study, to see it, is makes makes difference. You know.
Yeah, yeah, these are kind of an issue that we we, we deal with in any expressions that are not familiar to us, right? Talk
Yeah.
about fluid, perispirit, fluid of the medium, fluid of the spirit, fluid of the environment, right? So that we is not something that is familiar to us. So that's why we need to study a lot to get
Yes.
familiar to this. It,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. So I want you to say thank you.
you're
It
welcome.
was pleasure to have you this year explaining these medium books for us. And can I ask you to do the final prayer?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Okay. So let us conclude our meeting today, and then we are going to thanks to the spiritual benefactors who support us during this presentation, during the preparation of all the material, and hope that everybody understand what was presented today. We are would like to thank Jesus for this opportunity to be reunited here on His name and to talk about Spiritism, which explains, open up to us a broader view of the reality, not only the material reality, the physical reality, but also the spiritual realm, the spiritual dimension, and then bring us a knowledge of where we come from, where we are going to, and why we are here on earth. We are as immortal spirits, which are evolving to perfection. We thank God for this, for for the life, for this incarnation that we have, and ask Him to bless us all. So be it.
Amen. So once more, thank you, Roberto. Thank you, everyone. We have high, a lot of people today with us. This is great. Thank you very much. Stay tuned because today at 8:30 we do have our virtual healing. It's on our YouTube page. Just go to our Spiritism Ireland page in YouTube at 8:30, and you have the virtual healer. 15 minutes, but can make a huge difference on your day. Okay, and tomorrow we have spiritual light and also the study group. And Thursday I'll be here again with the spirits books comments. Okay, so enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, folks. I'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.